The story of the 332nd Fighter Group is not merely a tale of military aviation, it is a longitudinal study of the human spirit's resilience against the gravity of systemic prejudice. To understand the triumph of 1949, one must look back at the boys who would become the Red Tails, men like Alva Temple, James Harvey, and Harry Stewart, who grew up in an America that told them the sky had a ceiling they were forbidden to touch. Seeds of ambition in a divided land. Long before they donned flight suits, these men were children of the Great Depression and the Jim Crow era. Alva Temple grew up in the rural South, where the shadow of separate but equal loomed over every classroom and bus station. Harry Stewart was a boy in New York who watched planes from afar, dreaming of a cockpit while society told him he was better suited for manual labor. Their childhoods were defined by a paradox. They were taught to love a country that did not yet love them back. When World War II erupted, the Tuskegee experiment began at Moton Field in Alabama. It was a program designed by many in the War Department to fail. Skeptics believed black men lacked the coordination, courage, or intelligence to handle complex machinery. Yet these young men thrived. They didn't just learn to fly, they mastered the physics of the air, fueled by the Double V campaign: victory over fascism abroad and victory over racism at home. The crucible of combat and the post-war pivot. During the war, the 332nd earned the nickname Red Tails for the distinctive crimson paint on their tails. They became legendary for their discipline, famously staying with the bombers they escorted rather than peeling off to hunt for personal glory. By 1945, they had proven their mettle in the flak-filled skies over Europe. However, when the war ended, the greatest generation returned to a country that still demanded they use separate water fountains. In 1948, President Truman signed Executive Order 8981 to desegregate the military, but the culture of the newly formed U.S. Air Force remained icy. It was in this atmosphere of quiet hostility that the 1949 Conventional Fighter Gunnery Meet at Las Vegas Air Force Base, now Nellis AFB, was announced. This was the original Top Gun competition, a grueling test of every skill a fighter pilot possessed. The 1949 competition, against all odds. The team representing the 332nd Fighter Group consisted of Captain Alva Temple, Lieutenant James Harvey, Lieutenant Harry Stewart, and their masterful crew chief, Staff Sergeant Beaufort Johnson. They arrived at the competition as the ultimate underdogs. While other teams were flying the sleek, modern F-51 Mustangs and the powerful F-82 twin Mustangs, the Tuskegee team was assigned the P-47 Thunderbolt. The Jug, as it was called, was a rugged, aging workhorse, reliable but widely considered obsolete compared to the nimbler aircraft of their rivals. For several days under the blistering Nevada sun, the competition pushed the pilots to their limits. The events were diverse and deadly. Aerial gunnery, testing accuracy while maneuvering at high speeds. Dive bombing, plunging toward the Earth at terminal velocity to release a payload. Skip bombing, a terrifying technique where bombs are skipped across the ground like stones on water to hit a target. Rocket firing and panel strafing, precision strikes on ground targets. The Tuskegee Airmen didn't just compete, they performed with a mechanical perfection that stunned the observers. During the skip bombing phase, they achieved perfect scores. They didn't miss. Their rockets found their marks with surgical precision. As the points were tallied, the impossible had happened. The men in the obsolete planes had outflown the best the Air Force had to offer. The silence and the disappearance. The moment of victory should have been a turning point in American history. As the 332nd Fighter Group was announced as the first-place winners, a heavy, suffocating silence fell over the room. There were no standing ovations. There was no celebratory press tour. The white pilots and officers, many of whom had been outperformed by the very men they had looked down upon, chose a path of erasure rather than acknowledgement. Shortly after the win, the 332nd Fighter Group was deactivated as part of the integration process. The pilots were scattered to different units. More chillingly, the record of their victory vanished. In the official Air Force Almanac, the winners of the 1949 competition were listed as unknown for the next 46 years. The physical trophy, a silver bowl honoring the best pilots in the world, simply disappeared into the basement of history. The long walk through the shadows. For the rest of their lives, these men lived with the knowledge of what they had achieved, even as the world tried to forget it. Alva Temple retired from the Air Force as a lieutenant colonel and ran a gas station and later worked in public service, carrying his excellence into civilian life with quiet dignity. James Harvey continued to serve, flying missions in the Korean War and becoming the first black jet fighter pilot to fly in combat over Korea. Harry Stewart eventually left the service, struggling to find a commercial pilot job because airlines wouldn't hire black pilots at the time. He pivoted to business, eventually becoming a successful executive, but he never forgot the feel of the P-47 stick in his hand. For decades, their story was a family secret told at Tuskegee reunions, unheard by the American public. Historians began to dig, led by the tireless research of Zellie Rainey Orr. She refused to accept the unknown status in the records. Through her detective work, she eventually tracked down the original trophy, which had been tucked away in storage at the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force, its inscriptions hidden from view. Restoration, 73 years late. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it finally bent towards justice for the 1949 team. In 1995, the Air Force finally corrected the records, replacing unknown with the names of Temple, Harvey, Stewart, and Johnson. The culmination of this long journey occurred in 2022. At Nellis Air Force Base, the very site of their silenced triumph, a plaque was finally unveiled. James Harvey, then 98 years old and the last surviving member of the flight team, stood tall. He had lived long enough to see the silence broken. The legacy of these men is not just about their ability to hit a target or skip a bomb. It is about the fact that they did so while carrying the weight of a nation's prejudice on their wings. They died not as unknowns, but as the true, original top guns of the U.S. Air Force. Their flight didn't end in 1949. It continues every time an underrepresented pilot takes to the skies, knowing that the ceiling was broken long ago by 4 men in P-47s who refused to lose.